All right, everybody, welcome into another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. We got a good one for you today. In terms of fantasy, we're going to be doing fantasy steals and current values at their ADPs. So these are going to be guys you're going to want to hop on. They're getting drafted a little too late, for their value as we see it. I'm super excited to talk about this one. Also, we got in some big news today. DeAndre Hopkins signing with the Titans. Can we get your thoughts on that real quick, Dan?
Yep, super excited to get into this one. It's essentially just predicting league winners, players that are being drafted way too late. And yeah, the DeAndre Hopkins news is honestly not too surprising to me. I thought that the Titans were the best option, and it kind of seemed like it was heading in that direction the last few days. But I honestly love it. I think that the Titans have become the most underrated team in the whole NFL. I think that this kind of just reminds me of AJ Brown in that offense. I think Tannehill can still throw. He's still fine. I like Will Levis. Derrick Henry's going to be a monster. I actually really, really love the Titans' outlook with Mike Rabel coaching them up.
What do you think about the retirement home for wide receivers?
What?
You don't think that applies to D Hop? You
What do you
know that.
mean? Oh, for the time. Oh, because like Julio
Yes.
Jones. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
People have been comparing him to Julio Jones. I don't think they're at the same level though. I think DeAndre Hopkins is still like looked really good the last few years. I mean, last year he was really good in fantasy. I think in fantasy football perspective, I think he's going to be a pretty good option. He's probably going to go around wide receiver 22, and I think it's worth it. I think he's going to be the focal point of that offense. I think he helps Treylon Burks. It's not like Burks is going to take anything away from him. There's nothing that's going to take anything away from him other than Derrick Henry. So I'm honestly really excited for him. I don't think that he's going to regress for maybe a year or so.
Yeah, I think he's still shown and proved last year that he can come in and ball out with, and especially, I mean, through his whole career, he can ball out with whoever's playing quarterback. And he had such a strong finish to the end of the 2022 season. It doesn't really worry me. And he's a true possession wide receiver, which just complements that Titans offense and the way Mike Vrabel plays football so well. So I think you could see a big fantasy year, honestly, coming from DeAndre Hopkins. I'm super excited for it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we're both probably drafting DeAndre Hopkins. I don't really see him regressing in that system and in his situation. There's no way.
No, he should be totally fine. But with saying that, should we get into our steals? We're going to be doing 4 steals today, and I'll start it off first. And my number one steal right now is going to be Miles Sanders with a current ADP of the 5.5. So he's going in the 5th round at the 5th pick. And Miles Sanders quietly had one of the best seasons in his career last year. I mean, he ran the ball 260 times for 1,269 yards and 11 touchdowns with a 4.9 yards per carry. That's exactly what I want to be seeing from my running back right there. And I think he's going into a Panthers offense where he's going to be more of the focal point of that offense. And I think they'll involve him in the pass game a lot more. I mean, Philadelphia is notorious for running a running back by committee, and I think he's going to be getting out of that, and he's going to be the 3 down bell cow out there in Carolina. And I honestly think in the 5th round is way too late for a guy with top 10 upside. And I think Miles Sanders could easily finish as a top 5, especially in that. I mean, Carolina is a very, 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 and they have been very, very friendly running back system. So Miles Sanders being drafted way too late, in my opinion. The 5th round is way too late, but an absolute steal at that value.
Yeah, I think Frank Reich is honestly going into the season one of the more underrated coaches and just offensive play callers. His run game scheme is brilliant. He creates just one of the more unique run games, and it's really effective. And I really do agree that Miles Sanders is going to be really good in this Panthers offense. And I don't really see anyone else that's going to take from him. Chuba Hubbard's their backup, and he looked abysmal last year. I'm not scared of him taking anything. Blackshear is probably better than him. And I did want to ask you a question because every single draft, I swear, every single draft, I find myself deciding between Miles Sanders and Alexander Madison. It's the hardest decision. I'm always completely torn. Every single draft, I feel like I flip flop between each other. Who would you take, Miles Sanders or Madison?
That's such a tough. I know they're like going right by each other, but for
Mhm.
whatever odd reason, I do feel like Alexander Madison will start going higher. Come closer to the draft. I feel like Miles Sanders is going to see here. But that is very tough. I kind of find myself doing the same thing. I know in our fantasy league, We have a big Vikings fan who's definitely probably not going to let Alexander Madison probably out of the third round. So just because of that, in our main league, I always kind of seem to target Miles Sanders, but I probably would go Alexander Madison because he is going to go into that and be 100% their bell cow. They got rid of Dalvin Cook, and we saw any week that Dalvin Cook was injured, Alexander Madison was putting up 20+ point games. So Alexander Madison is a good sleeper / steal for this too. Especially if you don't have a Vikings fan in your league.
Yeah, ever since Dalvin Cook got cut, he's just been shooting up draft boards like every day, it seems like. But I honestly think Madison might be a little bit overrated at this point. He's really shot up boards, and he was a steal at a certain point. But I do think that the Vikings are going to have a more split backfield than people think. And in the Panthers backfield, like I just said, Miles Sanders is going to be kind of in a similar situation, but I think he's just being taken the ball away from him less, and there's just less options in Carolina. And I really do see Miles Sanders being like their scoring leader, and I love that pick.
Yeah. I don't think at that ADP you can go wrong. I mean, I would even feel comfortable taking him a little higher, but if you're getting Miles Sanders in the 5th round, you got yourself a good starter, with very, very high upside. And I think Miles Sanders is going to be featured a lot more in the pass game this year in that Panthers offense, and I'm super excited for it. I mean, if you get him as your RB2, as your flex, an absolute steal. You're sitting pretty with that.
Yep. All right, and then we'll get into my first guy, and that is Isaiah Pacheco, the Chiefs running back who was just fantastic last year. He is being drafted as the 4th overall pick in the 7th round, and that feels a little bit late to me. The man just runs like a bat out of hell, honestly. He's like a little tornado. He's just so fun to watch, and he shoots out of the backfield. And I think that the Chiefs are going to lean on him this year like they did at the end of the year last year. They did in the Super Bowl. I just think the best offense in the NFL, he's going to be a pretty big part of that offense. And I don't really get why he's being drafted behind some of the people he's being drafted behind. And I don't know about your thoughts on Isaiah Pacheco, but I think that he's kind of just being slept on for no reason, and he's on the best team.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's almost like the Bill Belichick system where you can never trust a Bill Belichick running back. It kind of applies to Andy Reid too. They just, ever since Kareem Hunt left that system, it just feels like they've been in such a running back by committee, and you never know who's going to be the best running back in that system. They still haven't re-signed Jerick McKinnon, which does give me a lot more hope for Isaiah Pacheco. And Isaiah, they really leaned heavily on him in the playoffs, and it worked. And he runs so hard, and I think that that the Chiefs being the number 1 scoring offense, the best offense in the league, there's going to be a lot of scoring opportunities for Isaiah Pacheco, and I think they'll get more creative with him this year. And I agree with you. I don't know why he'd be going in the 7th round. That feels like an absolute value and an absolute steal. For RB1 in the number 1 scoring offense. So I get that. I think people feel burned by Andy Reid running backs a lot. Since Clyde Edwards-Helaire and all those guys, but it feels like they got a good one in Pacheco. And we saw that playoff run with him, touching the ball a ton and getting a lot of that goal line work. And it really worked for the Chiefs. So I think we'll see a better year from Pacheco. And I think in the 7th round, it's an absolute steal.
Yeah, I will correct you real quick. They did just barely recently sign Jerick McKinnon, so I don't love Pacheco's receiving upside. That is one thing that's a little rough. They'll throw some screens to him, and he might take a few to the house. But yeah, McKinnon is their receiving back, and I just think Pacheco will kind of take on a larger role this year, and McKinnon will take a smaller role. And I just think where his ADP is right now, he's gonna pay off.
Oh, geez, yeah. When did McKinnon resign? That's funny.
It was like
right over my
last week, and it went really under the radar. It was like a $1 million deal. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's good for the Chiefs.
Oh, yeah.
He was such a stud last year for them. And he was like, wasn't he like running back like 5 the last 6 weeks of fantasy, something crazy like that?
Yeah, he was like the league winner last year. Yeah, he could do it again. I don't know. Hopefully he doesn't.
But he disappeared in the playoffs, and all of a sudden it was just Pacheco's show. So Pacheco's the best running back on that team by far, and he runs hard. So I'm excited to see his progression coming into year 2.
Yeah, hopefully they feed him as much as they did in the playoffs in the Super Bowl. But let's hear your number 2.
So my number 2 is going to be Elijah Moore, recently traded to the Cleveland Browns right before the draft. And And this guy, coming out of college was an absolute stud. Everyone was super high on him. He was a high second round pick. And it just seemed like the Jets, for whatever reason, and this is kind of a Jets thing, same with Denzel Mims. They just don't seem to feature certain receivers, and they kind of just get shut out of the offense for no reason. A guy with this much upside, this much speed, his hands are great, and he just never was able to flourish in that Jets offense or get featured. And I know they've been going through quarterback hell, but now they have Aaron Rodgers, the Jets wide receiver, should improve. But Elijah Moore, I think the best thing for him was to get a fresh start. I think the Cleveland Browns are a perfect team. I think he has the opportunity to go in there and fight for, to be their number one wide receiver, the most targeted wide receiver. There's no reason he can't be that guy. And it looks like through training camp, he's Deshaun Watson's dude. Looks like they have a great connection. Looks like they want to feature Elijah Moore. I mean, they went out there and traded for him, so you better believe they will. And Elijah Moore is just too talented of a guy to not be featured in the offense. So I'm super, super excited to see him in a new system. And in the 10th round, fourth pick, you can't feel bad about that. I mean, you're getting him as a backup wide receiver with potential, wide receiver 2 upside, maybe even higher than that, depending on his connection with Watson.
Yeah, I think considering this change of scenery, I think he's being drafted way too low. I understand the Browns have a lot of weapons, but this Kevin Stefanski offense is going to be good, and Deshaun Watson looks fresh in training camp. They have a really good connection, like you said. I'm interested to see how he complements Amari Cooper, but I think that this duo can be really, really electric with how much points this offense can put up, that I'm projecting at least. I really do think the Browns can be like a borderline top 10 offense, and I don't really think anyone's factoring that into any of these Browns players' ADPs. So I think Elijah Moore is a complete steal, and he's going to be used in the run game, sweeps, screens. He's a fun player to have on your team too, and he'll be on your bench. So I like that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, he's a bench player with starting upside, and getting that in the 10th round. That's what you're shooting for. That ADP is a steal, and I think we might see a big year from Elijah Moore. I think he's hungry, and I think he wants to go out there and prove the Jets wrong. And I think he will. And Watson should take a big step forward, going to his second year back from suspension. I know coming back, from not playing a lot of games is really hard. And he did an okay job last season, but with how talented Deshaun Watson is, we should see, his former self come this season, with a full offseason of training, a full year. So I expect big things and a big leap from the Browns, and get Elijah Moore as ADP all day long.
Yeah, like you said, how things are going to start coming back to normal for Watson. I kind of feel the same for Elijah Moore as well, because let's be honest, I kind of started to feel bad for him in his situation the last few years in New York. I wasn't even the highest in Elijah Moore coming out. I wasn't even the highest in Elijah Moore as a receiver, but like his situation was so bad, and they just didn't utilize his skill sets at all. They didn't just use him how he should have been used, and they should have thrown screens to him, gave sweeps to him, and I hope that the Browns use him like that, because he's a really electric gadget player.
100%.
As we saw at Ole Miss, he was so good in college.
Oh, who's your number 2 steal right here, Dan?
All right, this one is someone that's going a little bit earlier than these other guys we're talking about, but that is Jahmyr Gibbs, the rookie, 12th overall pick for the Lions. He's being drafted as the 12th pick in the 3rd round, and I just think for someone that's going to be coming into the Alvin Kamara role in that Lions Ben Johnson offense, I think that's really kind of just going under the radar, which is especially surprising to me, because a player that's so exciting, a highly drafted player, he's a very electric receiver, and the Lions have so much hype. So I don't know why he isn't going earlier. Bijan's going like in the top 7, and Jahmyr Gibbs was just taking a few picks later than him, and he's in a arguably just as good of a situation, really. So I don't love or I don't get why Jahmyr Gibbs is being drafted as the last pick in the 3rd round. It doesn't really make too much sense to me, but I'm taking him in almost all my leagues. I'm kind of waiting on running backs and just taking Jahmyr Gibbs as my RB1, because I think that's incredible value, and I think he'll finish as like a top 7 to 10 running back, and he'll be drafted in the 1st round of your guys' leagues next year. So I think he's really going to pay off his value. He's being drafted behind Travis Etienne too, and that's definitely something I could not do, is draft Travis Etienne over Jahmyr Gibbs, considering this guy's upside. He's true league winning upside this year, and I think you guys should take Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, no, Jahmyr Gibbs, he's drafted 12th overall in the NFL draft. And I mean, this dude was fun to watch at Alabama. I mean, he's a receiver, he's a running back, he's a gadget role player, and that's exactly what the Lions were looking for. Even if he only gets, 10, 12 carries a game, I don't think that matters because I think you're going to see 6, 7 receptions from him every single game. Ben Johnson, his offensive coordinator, is such a guru, so creative. And, this guy's so electric and such a good playmaker. The Lions are going to figure out how to get the ball in his hands. And even if you see David Montgomery getting 15 to 18 touches a game, I don't think you should worry about that because Jahmyr Gibbs is going to line up in the slot a lot. And I think that's even better for him. You're going to keep his legs fresh and you're going to give him the more valuable touches, he's going to be getting end arounds. He's going to be getting screens. He's going to be, kind of their all around scat back. And to me, that is the ultimate sign of value. And so I really love this one, Dan.
The more you're making me think about it, his ADP really doesn't make any sense. Because if you factor in his situation, which is literally the exact same situation that DeAndre Swift was in last year, but honestly a little bit better because Jamal Williams is better than Montgomery. I guess they're probably a wash, but still they're going to use Gibbs more than they use Swift. And Swift is being drafted right around the first round, like around pick 12. And Gibbs is being drafted as the 12th pick in the third round. So that doesn't make sense. DeAndre Swift has never really been that good. I think it's kind of evident that he got traded for a 6th-round pick and no one else wanted him. I think that's something that no one's really talking about. Is Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift is not really that good of a running back. And I guess he's going into a perfect system. He might be good in fantasy again, but I think Jahmyr Gibbs is just such a good prospect, a runner and a receiver, and I think he's gonna very much outpay his value.
Yeah, he's electric, and that Lions offense is going to be electric. I mean, they're going for big plays. They're shooting for the fences. These guys got nothing to lose. They're kind of an all-in situation, and they got the play caller to make it happen. And we're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs used in some creative ways. And so in the third round, almost the end of the third round, get your hands on Jahmyr Gibbs. That's, RB1, RB2, however you decide to start off your draft. I mean, there's a lot of value in, starting off, going wide receiver heavy. And then there's steals in the later rounds, like with our first, Dan's first 2 picks and my first pick. If you're getting Miles Sanders and Jahmyr Gibbs and you're getting, one of the top receivers, to Travis Kelce in the first round, you're sitting pretty. And that's a great strategy to go off of. And Jahmyr Gibbs is just going to be so electric, and I'm so excited. I think the Lions are my crush this year. This team, I'm super excited to watch them play.
Yeah, I think they're everyone's crush at this point. They're such a fun roster and such a well-coached team. And yeah, Gibbs is in such a good situation. I don't see him not being a first-round pick in your guys' drafts next year, to be honest. But let's hear your number 3.
So my number 3 is going to be Mr. Tyler Lockett. And this dude is being way too undervalued. I know that they brought in Jackson Smith and Jigba, but I don't think the way Jackson Smith and Jigba plays will really affect Tyler Lockett. I feel like Tyler Lockett's ADP has dropped substantially and DK Metcalf's has stayed the same. And I honestly think Jackson Smith and Jigba almost would take over that DK Metcalf and get interference in his role. I mean, Tyler Lockett, no one's really talking about it. The dude had 84 receptions for 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns last year. And he keeps himself, safe. You always see Tyler Lockett, those highlight videos of him just falling. So he's fresh. He's not injured. He keeps himself safe. And Geno Smith really, really had a good connection with him last year. And the way he plays football, and I still think Tyler Lockett, I don't think they're going to, in their 2-down situation or their 2 wide receiver sets, I think it's going to be Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I don't see Jackson Smith and Jigba jumping over both of them yet, but I kind of see him affecting DK more. And DK's ADP has pretty much stayed the same, and Tyler Lockett's has dropped substantially. And so you're getting Tyler Lockett at the 6'11", end of the 6th round, almost the 7th round, and you have a potential wide receiver 2, flex play with high upside. I mean, this guy is not really disappointed. He was really strong at the end of the year, and he had 117 targets. That kind of, Geno Smith trusts him. He wants to get him the ball. And I think he's their best deep ball threat. So get Tyler Lockett. I do think it's amazing value. I think his ADP has dropped way too much because of Smith and Jigba. And I think his role won't change.
Yeah, I think he's the definition of a value pick. I think he's dropping way too much for no reason, pretty much just because he's turning 31 this year. And the guy is up there with the best all time that I've ever seen at tracking the deep balls and just coming down with incredible over the head catches and just over the shoulder, turning his shoulder. He has great body control and hands in that sense. And Gino was zipping him moon balls last year. It was incredible. He was just throwing him anything downfield, and Lockett was coming down with it. And I don't see that stopping. And Jackson Smith and Jigba really does just open up that offense and make it so no one can focus the safety on Lockett. And I think they're all going to complement each other perfectly. And Lockett will be able to start for you guys' teams pretty much every single week, and he's easily going to outperform his ADP. Like I don't see a world where he doesn't unless he gets hurt, and that's really the only reason he's being so low is because of his age.
And Tyler Lockett during the middle of the season, let's see, from October 30th to December 11th, had a touchdown every single week. So he had a 6-week span of scoring a touchdown. So this guy gets open, he gets open deep, and he scores. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive. 6 consecutive weeks of scoring.
They're probably all long
receiver.
moon balls too, because he really does just come down with like a long touchdown every game. It feels like that's incredible though. I didn't realize there was 6 games in a row.
Yeah, he had a 6-game consecutive touchdown streak. So I think, people are just very, very underrating Tyler Lockett and his skill set. And if you're able to get him at the 6'11", I think anywhere in the 6th to 7th round, I mean, you're walking away with a steal and you're feeling good about that.
Yeah, I love that a lot. With that, we'll get into my number 3, and I think it's someone that you'll agree with, and that is Mike Williams, the Chargers receiver.
Ooh, I love it.
I love Mike Williams. I love the Chargers offense. I'm definitely targeting the Chargers offense this year with Kellen Moore coming over. Mike Williams is being drafted as the 6th or the 10th pick in the 6th round, however, and Keenan Allen is going as the 4th pick in the 4th round. And even if Keenan is their leading receiver, I think it's going to be really, really close. I think Mike Williams is right up there with Keenan as the leading receiver. I think they'll be targeted almost the same amount. And Mike Williams will definitely have more boom weeks because of just the player he is. He can come down with a long touchdown in any given play, really. And he's a little inconsistent. It sucks. But, I mean, last year he was honestly a really solid fantasy player. And I just see the Chargers offense progressing more. And if he can stay healthy, he's a very dynamic receiver. And him and Herbert have an incredible connection, as well as Keenan. I know Quentin Johnston's coming over, but I just think that Mike Williams is still going to be their number 1 outside receiver, and I don't see Herbert's connection with him diminishing by any means, and they're going to be throwing the hell out of the ball. So I'm really excited for Mike Williams.
Oh, I preach this. I love that. I love that you actually brought him up and actually you're talking about him. But yeah, that is absolute insane value. I mean, 2 years ago, Mike Williams, of course, injury bearing. He was wide receiver 1 in that historic Cooper Kupp season through like the first 11 weeks. Mike Williams was going off. And that's when, Keenan Allen being on the field with Mike Williams helps Mike Williams. Mike Williams thrives, when Keenan's the one being doubled or whatever. When they're focusing on another guy. And I think Quentin Johnston honestly helps Mike Williams. You got more receivers. You can't really double anyone. There'll probably be more zone played against the Chargers than man. But Mike Williams, talk about a boom guy. I mean, when he goes off and he has that boom week, he goes, he can go for 39, 40 points in your fantasy league. And that's the kind of boom weeks that when games, when you leagues, and pretty much the 7th round, getting a guy that will have 40-point weeks is very important. You want those high upside guys, and Mike Williams any given week can go for 140, 10 catches and 2 touchdowns. That's just the kind of receiver he is. He's not always going to be consistent, and that's why you're getting him a little later. But he is a type of guy that will win you your league and win you games off of his boom weeks.
Yeah, last year he was a little inconsistent, and he missed 4 games to injury, and that's kind of a reoccurring theme with Mike Williams, it seems. But he had 6 games over 20 points. He's just a really good player, and I like starting him as my flex. I did last year. I had him, and I just really like Mike Williams, the player, and he'll win you weeks. He's someone that you can rely on, and I don't see that the Chargers offense.
It's only going to take a step forward with Kellen Moore. It's just
it has to.
So much more of a guru than Joe Lombardi ever was. And he's going to figure out how to get these receivers the ball and get them in open space. And, I think we can see all the Chargers receivers taking a big step up this year from a disappointing last year.
Yeah, even if they drafted a first round receiver, there's just going to be so much more opportunities in general going around, and they're going to be in the red zone more, and they're going to be calling better plays in the red zone, probably giving Mike Williams a lot of fades, which he'll come down with more than a 50-50 chance. That's for sure. So yeah, I love Mike Williams.
100%. All right. Should I get into my last guy right here?
Yeah, let's hear it.
This might be kind of a hot take, but Aaron Rodgers right here.
Ooh.
Aaron Rodgers is currently going at the 10-6. So he's going in the 10th round and the 6th overall pick. And to me, if you're going to wait and sit on quarterback and you don't want one of these top 5 guys, then Aaron Rodgers is just going to be an absolute steal for you. I think the Jets offense and the Jets defense is actually going to tremendously help Aaron Rodgers take the pressure off of him. Last year was his most disappointing year in a long time, but Aaron Rodgers is now stepping into a better, all around system. His wide receiver play, getting a Garrett Wilson, which is like a Devontae Adams back, is going to be huge for touchdowns. He threw 26 touchdowns last year. I think he's going to be back up in the 30s this year. And I think Aaron Rodgers sneakily has a little bit of rushing upside. I think, around the goal line, he can maybe get you 1 or 2 touchdowns throughout the season and maybe 150, 200 yards rushing. He is getting older. He is, he's 2 years removed from an MVP season. And I think, he's hungry. I think he's motivated. And I think he wants to, show the Packers what he can do with a good supporting cast on offense. And I don't really see him failing this year. Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame type quarterback. And I kind of see almost like a Tom Brady type season when he went to the Bucs in his first year. And he just really wanted to prove something. He really wanted to win a Super Bowl with a different team. I think we're going to see a type of season like that from Aaron Rodgers. And I think he'll get back up into the 30+ touchdowns and easily 4,000 yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like what you said about him comparing to Tom Brady's first season in Tampa. I think it's very similar vibes in New York right now, and I think they will compete as hard as the AFC is. It'll be hard, but I think they'll definitely be up there in the playoffs in the hard division. And he's going as the quarterback 14 right now, and he finished as the quarterback 13 last year, and he's going into a pretty incredible situation with some really talented players like Garrett Wilson. We did a stack episode, last fantasy episode, and I think Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson is by far the biggest budget stack you can do in fantasy football. It's pretty crazy how low Aaron Rodgers is going. It's almost undraftable, and Garrett Wilson's going a little bit lower than he probably should be too. So I like this a lot. I think the Jets offense is going to definitely take a really big step up from the last few years, and I think that just Rodgers is going to be definitely outpaying his ADP. It's a little bit disrespectful how low it is, and
oh yeah,
he's been a top 3 to 5 quarterback in the NFL for the last few years. So,
and he's got weapons. Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard came over from the Packers, who's arguably one of his favorite targets. They got McCole Hardman this year. He's getting Breece Hall at running back. Denzel Mims, Corey Davis, Randall Cobb came over. He's got a stacked receiver room. And the Jets honestly have a very underrated offensive line that I think will be, a big contributor to his success. So, and the defense is going to keep, they're going to be competitive, keep the other side, not on the field long. So Aaron Rodgers is going to have plenty of opportunity. And I think, he's hungry, and I think we might see MVP Rodgers again this year. It's a big hot take, but honestly, it does feel disrespectful. Aaron Rodgers going in the 10th round as the 14th quarterback. There's not 14 quarterbacks better than Aaron Rodgers right now. There's just not.
That's definitely true. It's pretty crazy to think about when you think about it like that. I understand people like Anthony Richardson maybe going over him just for pure upside, but other than that, I'm not taking like even Kirk Cousins over Aaron Rodgers. I honestly think Aaron Rodgers will be really good this year.
Oh, 100%. Preach.
Yeah, and I think he'll throw a lot of touchdowns too. Garrett Wilson is such a good player. He hasn't had a player like him since Devontae Adams, and they're similar skill sets. So I think that there's a lot more upside to Aaron Rodgers than people are realizing. I think you kind of put me on that. I was a little bit lower on him as well because how good their defense is. I was just a little bit scared, and the more I think about it, they're going to be really good. The vibes are really good. Aaron Rodgers is putting in a lot of work. He doesn't want any backlash. He's gonna make sure that they're in the Super Bowl run.
Oh, 100%. All right,
So
Dan, let's hear your final guy of the night.
all right. My final guy is a Bronco, surprisingly, and that is Samaje Perine.
I like it.
Surprisingly, not Javonte Williams, but I just think with Samaje Perine being drafted as the 10th pick in the ninth round, uh, considering just the Broncos' whole backfield situation, not knowing exactly when Javonte Williams will be back, but even if Javonte Williams is back week one, we saw last year Perine filled in for Mixon multiple occasions, and I don't know if he scored under 15 points in any fantasy game he started. And he's a really capable NFL starting running back. And as long as Javonte Williams is down, you can plug in Perine as a lock starter. He'll score you over 10 points every week on that Sean Payton offense. And I think he's really exciting. His outlook's really exciting. He's a really good running back. And I think that the Broncos are going to center their offense around that running game with Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine. So I think he's being very drastically undervalued. He's being drafted by some players that you wouldn't even believe. And Javonte Williams is being drafted in almost the fourth round with his questionable situation. So I think even if Javonte Williams is healthy, like I said, he can easily go down. Even if they split, Perine will be somewhat productive. So I think Perine's ADP is way too low considering he could plug in and be a league winner if Javonte gets hurt at the end of the year, even, you know?
Yeah, and I mean Javonte's injury, was pretty serious, and you don't want to see him rush back from it. But it seems like he's already on the practice field and ready to go, which is insane. It's nuts. But you'd almost just like to not see Javonte rush himself back and just let the Broncos lean on Perine. I mean, the dude's capable. He's a fantastic receiver. He's a fantastic runner. And yeah, bearing anything bad happens to Javonte, plug in Samaje Perine, with a head coach like Sean Payton, and you're gonna see beautiful things. I mean, it's gonna be an electric run slash screen game slash pass game to Samaje Perine. And yeah, I had Joe Mixon on my fantasy team, and thank goodness I had Samaje Perine as a handcuff. Because when Joe Mixon went down, Perine was scoring me 20, 30. I'm pretty sure he had a 39-point week. I think he caught like 3 touchdowns or something in the game, which was pretty impressive. But yeah, I really like Samaje Perine. If you're getting Javonte Williams, make sure you get Perine as a handcuff. This guy's so electric. And he starts any games, he's winning you weeks because he's going off that week.
Yeah, that would be nice if you could get Perine as a handcuff to Javonte. Then you're getting a piece of that Sean Payton backfield every single week. And like I said, Javonte Williams was going in like the 4th round, and now he's all the way down to the 7th round. He keeps falling down ADP, even though he's practicing and looks fine out there. So it's pretty interesting that Broncos backfield is just completely being undervalued to me in general. I think Javonte could definitely be a fantasy football still as well. And I think either of these players could be league winning. It's really hard to predict what one, but I think I'm going to throw some darts at both of these guys.
Well, and think about, Sean Payton offense not too long ago with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
Those dudes both finished top 10 in fantasy, and that's ridiculous. And I think Sean Payton knows how good Russell Wilson played with Marshawn Lynch, in a run-heavy offense. And I don't think, you can put that past the Broncos. I think they went out and got Samaje Perine for a reason. And I think, this running back by committee is going to be lethal. Sean Payton knows how to use a running back by committee. He's had 2 guys produce top 10 seasons in the same season, which has never been done by anyone before. So very underrated. That's definitely, throw a dart at Samaje Perine. If you get Javonte Williams, please handcuff him with Perine. You won't regret it.
Yeah, even if both are healthy, I really do think you could start them as a flex and be somewhat fine, especially Javonte if they're both healthy. But yeah, I did want to play a little game with you just real quick. Both of our 3rd picks happen to be 1 pick away from each other. But I wanted to ask you, you would take Mike Williams over Tyler Lockett, right? If they were both on the board?
I would, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that just kind of shows how big of a steal Mike Williams is. There is a little bit of a tier drop down right after where Mike Williams is going. And there's some players in front of Mike Williams that I would take Mike Williams over as well. So yeah, I think Mike Williams is a huge steal. And yeah, Lockett is going to be really fun. Our co-host Shane had some guys that he wanted to throw out, like Lockett's quarterback, which was Geno Smith. Geno Smith's being drafted in the 11th round, which is pretty
and he
comical.
finished quarterback 7 or something last year. I mean, he was high up there. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he was so good last year. He also threw out Christian Kirk, who's being drafted as the first pick in the 7th round, which is definitely fair. There's always a shot that Calvin Ridley isn't, the same and isn't their number one, like just that they need to force feed. So definitely a possibility that Christian Kirk has the same season he had last year. He was a really good starting wide receiver too for you. Any other stills you want to throw out before we get out?
Oh gosh, there's one guy, and it is another Charger that I'd just like to talk about because he could be, maybe he's more of a boomer bust type prospect, but Quentin Johnston, what is his ADP? Will you throw it out for me real quick? But he is just, they draft him in the first round. He's too athletic. He fits everything the Chargers have been missing with, yak yards after the catch. And Kellen Moore is going to figure out a way to get all 3 of these receivers involved. And I think Quentin Johnston is going to have a big role for himself immediately.
Yep. Quentin Johnston's being drafted as the first pick in the 9th round, which is pretty crazy. Jonathan Mingo is only going 3 rounds after Quentin Johnston, which sounds stupid to me. Quentin Johnston is a great option. He's going to be like a running back, like a Debo for the Chargers at the beginning of the season. He can definitely develop into a real wide receiver 1 by the end of the year because he has that upside. And not just Quentin Johnston, like Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, kind of JSN. Like all these rookie receivers are going lower than a lot of rookie receivers and most years go. Like rookie receivers are the true league winners. So I'm definitely taking shots at a lot of these rookies.
Yeah, take shots at rookie receivers. That is a great point because that's how you win your leagues. You get these sleeper guys that are going in the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th round, and these guys are your boomer bust guys that win you the league. When you get a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, from a rookie, draft them. Just draft them because you never know. They could break out. And these receivers are coming out of college so refined. They're so good out of college for whatever reason. They're coming out so good and developing to the NFL so well. So draft them all.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Even young receivers like Jerry Jeudy and Terry McLaurin, I just think are going way too low. Brandon Ayuk. So a lot of these young receivers in good situations take shots on. Really exciting episode. We essentially just took our shots on league winners predictions, and these are players that we're going to be drafting a lot. So we're going to be taking the hit if we're wrong.
Yep. It'll be so fun to see at the end of the season. And I'm excited to, reflect on these type of videos at the end of the year and do them next year. Cause these are so fun. And, trust us, draft these guys. The ADP is there. The value is going to be there. We're going to be right.
Yep. NFL Seekers podcast. Thank you guys for tuning into another fantasy episode. We'll have a deep dives episode back this week as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Peace.